Lovely. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's webinar. I'm Lisa and today's webinar we're going to be presented by a very familiar face to many of you, our very own marketing manager, Chris Hall. So for those of you who are joining us, for the first time, it's very very warm welcome to you. And for those of you who are regular, it's good to have you back. So in today's webinar, Chris is going to share his views and insights on the top trends to dominate 2021. You've been over 480 to sign up, so it's a sign that, like me, you're very curious to hear more about it. Obviously, when we did our top trend webinar back in January 2020, we had no idea of obviously what would happen later on. But with the latest announcement earlier this week, there are definitely many positives elements to look forward to. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And where are you joining us all from today? I'm personally in the office for the first time since middle of last year. So yeah, I want to hear more from all of you. Let's open the chat. Do we have anybody here yet? Yeah, London or Scotland, anywhere. We'll be starting shortly. Oh wow, Jersey Channel Islands. That is very far away for me, but very exotic. Warwickshire, Liverpool, Bath, lovely. Oh, I love that. Sunny Blackpool. Wow, I didn't know it could be any sun. I'm joking, I'm joking. But great. It's really, really good to hear from all of you. You're over, 100, 120 and coming in. So that's great. In the meantime, obviously a little bit of house rules and also a very big announcement. Obviously, as many of you now probably, next week is our big conference, Be More Digital virtual conference from the 2nd to the 4th. We have over 2,000 of you that have registered, and we're really, really excited. If you haven't signed up already, don't worry, you still have time. You can head over to our website. I think we'll pop the link in the chat as well. So yeah, we are also very excited about it. We have loads of amazing charity speakers. We have the Sick Children Trust, Royal Opera House, the British Heart Foundation that be talking. So yeah, really looking forward to it. And then you have probably the link in the chat to look at the agenda. So yeah, looking forward to having all of you joining us. And then a couple of house rules for today's webinar. Obviously, Chris's presentation is going to run for about 35 minutes. And then after the presentation, we will be hosting a live Q&A to answer all of your questions. So you can submit them throughout the presentation using the Q&A button on your screen, either at the top or at the bottom. It's two little speech bubbles that are overlapping one another. So for those of you joining us for the first time, new feature, you can upvote some questions. So, we can see which ones we should answer first. So you can use the thumb up emoji associated with the question. And as always, use the chat function throughout the day, throughout the session. Tell us where you're from, your experiences, your ideas, interact with each other. That's what we like to see. We will make sure to answer all of your questions. We may finish a little bit beyond 2 p.m. So if you have to dash, don't worry, all the questions will be answered in a recording, and we will send the recording next week. So without further ado, let me hand over to Chris on the top trends to dominate 2021.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Lisa, for a lovely introduction, as always. And I guess big hello to everybody out there is from me. It's been ages. It certainly seems like it's been ages since I've been able to talk to you. I think it was before Christmas I did my last webinar. I've been on a bit of a webinar hiatus as well. Let some other fresh faces get out in front of the organisation. But I've missed you all dearly, and I hope you've all been taking really good care of yourselves and are as excited as I am to be going outside to play soon. Big news that came out this week, so hope you're all doing well anyways, and it's great to be back. As Lisa said, look, the chat's there, and we always encourage that people use it, get comfortable. One of the sort of shining lights of these webinars over the past 3-4 months and pretty much through all of lockdown is how engaging you have been in the chat. So let us know anytime throughout the webinar if there's something that really resonates with you. Share a story, share an adage, connect with each other and just have a bit of chat. That's what it's there for. It's as good learning from us as it is from each other, and that's half the thing with these webinars. That's half the goal anyways. I'm going to be making a few apologies early on, so just bear with us. For the hang on, my slide's not changing. There we go. For the newcomers, I do just want to share a little bit about me before we start. And for those who have heard this before, I apologise. It's probably a bit repetitive, but indulge us for a few minutes if you don't mind. I'm Chris Hall. I am the marketing manager here at Charity Digital. I've spent about, well, almost exactly 2 years with the organisation and the charity sector in total. Next week is my 2-year anniversary. And I've been about 7 years in tech. So started out in the tech for good space and sort of social impact space in New York, where I went to college. Lived out there for 4 or 5 years. Come back here, did a few years with Google, and eventually wound my way up to be speaking to all of you good people today, with Charity Digital. As you can probably tell from my background, I'm a very proud Geordie, and I've changed my background today because it's been ages since I've been able to get back up there, as you can imagine, in the new pandemic. Well, not new pandemic, the existing pandemic. It's been a long time, and I miss my family dearly. I'm down in London, so I'll put the quayside behind us just to remind us of a little bit of home. I am a shameless Newcastle United fan. I bleed black and white for my sins anyways, and they're quite a hard club to follow at the minute. If there's any other fellow black and whiters out there, they'll understand what I'm talking about. Lisa's a Man United fan, so we haven't been talking since the weekend. But we live in hope. The good thing about Newcastle United fans is we're optimists, so we're always looking forward. Couple of random facts. I absolutely love penguins, and that's kind of connected to the next one. I've been to Antarctica, so a couple of years ago I went on a climate change expedition with an organisation called 2041. I just see in the chat there that someone else has been. I wonder if it was with the same organisation, with a guy called Rob Swan, who was the first guy ever to walk to both the North and South Poles unsupported. So I was really lucky to go down there as a comms volunteer to help blog, video, all the stuff we were doing down there. So that was really good. And I know we're early in March, but I couldn't help but include what my New Year's resolutions were, and I wanted to get some of yours, whether you've managed to keep up with them over the last 2-3 months or whether you've just completely binned them. Mine's less time on Zoom, which I understand the irony in that, as I'm talking to you all via Zoom. But I've been able to do that since January was tough. There's a lot of 6, 7, 8 hour Zoom days, but in February I've been doing a lot better, and spending more time getting off at a reasonable hour, getting out and doing a bit of exercise. I've started this 3K day lark. I've got a wedding coming up, my wedding coming up in a few months. So I need to lose a few pounds. So this 3K day lark starting to do quite remarkable things for us, which is good. So yeah, what's yours? Let us know. Yeah, lockdown pounds, exactly. I've piled it on, heaviest I've ever been. Not afraid to admit it, but hopefully these 3K days, I'll get them off his note quite quickly. Fingers crossed. Anyways, I've indulged myself enough there, and thanks for doing that. And lovely to meet all the new people joining us today as well. So let's get into the crux of it. What are we here to talk about? So there's 4 key areas of discussion I want to go over today. As Lisa kind of rightly alluded to before, we did this exact same webinar last year. Looked at the trends that were coming up in 2020, and it was actually the first one we did, so it was in January. And as you probably can tell, and if you joined our webinar back in December, I couldn't have been more wrong. Unfortunately, did not manage to foresee the trend of a pandemic. I know, terrible of me. But we kind of wanted to do it again, as we were getting a lot of questions about it. We made some amends throughout the year, and at the end of last year, if you were able to join us, we ran a webinar called 2020 Nobody Saw That Coming. And in that webinar we highlighted that we felt there was a lot of negativity in the sector, and we really wanted to talk about that. It wasn't all bad, and that was still, I go back to the optimist in me, there's still plenty to be hopeful about. And what's more, there was still a lot of it in our control as well. So I want to spend a bit of time today reiterating that message again, and kind of gee us up as we go into the new financial year, and carry on where we ended that webinar, which is looking forward to this year, hopefully with a higher degree of accuracy than what I did last year. Touch wood. We'll also we'll kickstart by looking back at what actually happened last year. I think it's important to remind ourselves of where we've come from, and where we've been, where we've come from, and how we can use that to go forward. And then we'll be reminding ourselves of what's important to the what's most important to us, which is what we've learned by looking back. Then we'll get into the real meat of what we're all here for. We'll be diving head first into the trends of 2021. I know on the title, I originally said 4, and this is where my second apology comes in. I've since sitting down and kind of working through the webinar, it's actually increased to 6, but that's often the case as I kind of get my head in these things. But I'm sure the more there is, the better it can only be. So bear with us on that one, and thanks in advance. And of course, as always, there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. As Lisa said, we might run over the 2 o'clock deadline if there's plenty. And it might extend by an extra 15 minutes, half an hour. If you can join us, great. If you can't and got to get off, don't worry about it. We'll have everything in the recording for you afterwards anyways. So what actually happened in 2020? Well, when I produced this webinar back in December, we looked at a recent piece of research, recent from then, called the COVID-19 Voluntary Sector Impact Barometer, which was conducted by Nottingham Trent, Sheffield Hallam Universities, NCVO, and the Economic and Social Research Council. The survey was sent on an ongoing basis over a number of months to north of 700 charities of all different sizes, scopes, and missions. Granted, that's quite a small numbers, but the results kind of came out as you expected, and they are as following. 11% of charities thought they were unlikely to be operating by this time of next year. We don't know how that is exactly at the minute, but we'll be looking forward to benchmarking that soon. 38% of finances deteriorated. Again, an understandable statistic given the amount of changes that had to be implemented throughout the sector. There was a 50% increase in demand in charity service. Again, this is exactly what was expected, as lots of services changed, lots more people became were living on their own, were isolated, loneliness, mental health issues that cropped up amongst not everybody going to the hospital as they once were due to the risk of COVID, among many others as well. And there was a 61% increase in operating costs. Similarly, as we were all hurried to move online and change to a different way of work and different culture, supporting our staff, it was always going to cost a little bit more in the short term and continuously in the long run. So not a surprising statistic either. And 80% expected COVID to negatively impact their organisations. And what I kind of noted then is what I'm going to note now. This all makes for, quite frankly, a bit scary reading, and rightly so in many ways. There's a lot of work. There was a lot of work that needed to be done and still needs to be done, and we still need a lot more support from the government. But the other side of it is actually there's a lot of positives that we can take out of last year as well, and that are these. So we talk a lot about learns here at Charity Digital. Quite heavily, it's all about test and iterate, and we'll be talking about this a little bit more throughout the webinar. But we continuously, we don't fear failure. Einstein's definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting the same results. The idea is to always learn, and I think 2020 is a perfect time for us as charities to look back and learn from what the year taught us. And the kind of first thing I picked out is that, as a sector, we're braver and bolder than anybody really gives us credit for. And we really are starting to challenge that left behind stamp. The most positive outcome of 2020 is that charities have been forced to change and adapt. And this is something we've often got a bad rep for in the past. But not only have we done it, we've actually done it to some, quite a good degree of excellency as well. A staggering 92% of charities moved their services online. And that's not an insignificant amount, that's a huge amount, and kind of proves the sector is willing to adapt, it's willing to adopt that test and learn model. No matter what the difficulty was, it's all a mindset. The second one was we are survivors, thrivers, and providers. And I made this joke last time. I don't know how well it's stuck, but I'm going to make it again and see what happens this time. Terrible Rocky 6 quote, but I love Rocky really, so it's not that terrible. It's not about how hard you get hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that perfectly kind of sums up 2020 for me. It was all about surviving, not thriving. But once the kind of dust of the initial lockdowns had settled, a lot of charities survived and some even thrived, 70% of charities were able to maintain or even increase their fundraising revenue during lockdown. And that's a stat we pulled from Blackboard Status of UK Fundraising Report. And this is all while adapting to new working environments, supporting staff and delivering vital services to millions of users as well. It's an incredibly staggering number, really. The next, as I kind of already mentioned, is that the next positive is that digital is a mindset driven by leaders. And when I say leaders, I don't mean leadership teams. Leaders can take many forms within an organization, and it's those people that drive the digital forward within organizations. 30% of charities struggled during lockdown, but believe it or not, this actually wasn't due to size, as you'd expect. And from the same report from Blackboard, the Status of UK Fundraising, they did a little bit more digging into this, and kind of the outcome of that 30% who said they'd struggle, it was down to the mentality and culture of the organisation, not so much about size. Those that adopted the sort of digital mindsets did so throughout the whole organisation. It wasn't just individual teams. There was a kind of realization that digital encompassed more than social media, marketing, and fundraising, but actually the sum of all parts, the whole part, not the sum. Also, remote working made us think of our digital infrastructure, which is such a big part of digital strategy that we'd never really thought about before. Team collaboration tools are the norm now. I mean, I use Teams more than I use WhatsApp these days. And video conferencing, without video conferencing, I wouldn't be able to speak to my parents who live in America. And on a much more somber level, I wouldn't have been able to attend some funerals of family members who've sadly passed away. So the likes of video conferencing have not only changed what we do on a daily basis in our work, but also massively impacting our personal lives as well. What we did was incredible. We delivered services online. We fundraised from desks, and that was all by changing the way we approach our charity operations. And that was, it's something to give yourselves all a pat on the back about, really. One of the key learnings, I think, and that we want to carry forward into this year is that we'll be better prepared. Most charities have already done the hardest part, and that's acknowledging the need for change, and having the brevity to take the first step. It's always the first hard. They say anytime you want to change, the hardest part is acknowledging that you need to, and then it's taking that first step out the door to set yourself on the journey. We're now kind of aware of our vulnerabilities, and we can plan what needs to be done to rebuild, mitigate risks, and become truly resilient and sustainable organizations. Whether you're optimistic like I am or a little bit concerned about your charity's future, there's still time to do something about it. It's not all over. And there's a lot of really good stories out there as well, and you don't just take that from us. If you want to learn more, I'd go back and listen to that webinar that we did in December, just before we clocked off for Christmas. We shared 4 really, really great stories that I can't really share today, unfortunately, a bit time constrained. But there's some really, really great ones that would implore you to go and check out and see how they changed and transformed digitally. So onto the top trends of 2021 and what can we expect? Well, first of all, I think we can expect it's going to be a much better year than last year. But there's kind of 6 key topics that I think we can focus on. Number 1 being Brexit. The second one is hybrid and blended working. The third one is kind of a consistent one, and I did actually talk about this last year, but it still sticks, albeit slightly in a different way, and that's donor and user trust. The fourth one, digital culture and strategy, which we've talked about a little bit, but I want to sort of talk a little bit more about how it'll manifest itself this year and what charities should be looking to do from a culture and strategy perspective. Then we'll move on to creativity and abundance. So I think 2020 was one of the most creative years for charities, essentially because we had to be. And I think that innovation is only going to take on new steps and new levels, essentially, as tech catches up and and our users get more involved as well. It's going to be a lot more of a community feel about this year, I think, than ever before. And the last one is the sixth one that I've kind of added on to last year's chat is cybersecurity. For any of you who were joined us 2 weeks ago, you know, cybersecurity is a huge deal for us this year, and that went long before we actually had our own breach. We personally have seen a huge drop in engagement with a lot of our cybersecurity content than, you know, 2-3 years ago, and it's somewhat understandable, given the fact, you know, we've needed to focus on fundraising and delivering services, but we're actually incredibly vulnerable at the minute to attacks from cyber criminals, even us, and we went through that last week. But I'll touch more on that as we go through. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. So, trend number one, Brexit. And I'm gonna, here's my third apology. I can't profess to be any sort of expert on Brexit. Digital marketing, yes. Brexit, not so much, but I did a little bit of research, and, you know, it is a little bit of a cheap trend. I get that, it's been around for a while. But since we're now past the deadline of, you know, the effects of Brexit will be a continuous talking point throughout the year. And I just wanted to bring up a few things to keep tabs on. The involvement, I mean, or should I say really lack of involvement of the charity sector in any Brexit decision making has been a bit disappointing. I've been following it somewhat closely in that sense. However, we will be having access to the what's called the Civil Society Forum. The UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreements specifies that the UK and EU member states do need to set up a civil society forum. And this forum, should meet at least once a year, and can convene virtually as well, depending on what's going on in the world. It's likely to include representatives from charity sector umbrella bodies, or representatives from business employees, organisations and trade unions are also going to be invited. The Civil Society Forum seems to give charities a voice, but there are still concerns that may be drowned. Now, nonetheless, you know, there's kind of little information or detail on the forum, but nonetheless, I think it's one that we all need to keep an eye on next year in terms of what actually Brexit will mean specifically for us as charities. The next, I think, and quite important one is travelling and working in the UK, working in the EU, sorry, as it pertains a lot to the people who matter most in the charities. You know, under Brexit, UK citizens no longer have the automatic right to live or work in the EU, and the same applies the other way to EU nationals in Britain. There is a settlement scheme that has been set up, which EU nationals need to apply for by the 30th of June 2021 if they want to continue living and working here. I know this might not be news to a lot of people. This has been around for the last few years. My partner is Polish. She's had to go through this, but it's ever changing, and it's not entirely the most clear thing. So the sooner you get involved, or get your staff or employees, co-workers to get involved in this scheme, the better. You know, there is a sort of increasing number of charities who are warning of the risks, which is kind of including homelessness and a lack of access to support that EU nationals might face if they do not sort of act and meet the deadline. So it's important to be super mindful of that with sort of non-UK workers you have in your charity. The next is sort of GDPR and data. One to keep an eye on, although I don't anticipate it will change a lot, but this is possibly the biggest change from a digital standpoint. Now, in practice, there's little change at the minute to key principles of data and the rights of individuals around information stored on them. Despite the EU's GDPR no longer applying to the UK, it has been incorporated into UK data protection law. So the GDPR still applies currently. This sits alongside the existing Data Protection Act of 2018 as well. However, it is worth noting that the UK does have the power to change data protection legislation. Although there are no plans to do so at the moment. So this might be one, you know, we're kind of touting this as one to follow throughout the year. We also want to note the Brexit checker tool. You know, if you want to keep up to date, a good place to start is looking at the government's transition website, which features this Brexit checker tool. I've included the link to that on the slide there. It's www.gov.uk/transition-check/questions. And that provides a personalized list of actions for you specifically, or charity specifically, or family. Definitely worth checking out if you believe that it's going to have some impact on your charity. that is Brexit over anyways, but felt like I couldn't do this talk without mentioning it in some capacity. Excuse me. So the next step on our trend, number 2, is hybrid and blended. And I think you should expect to see these terms for types of work and operate and run events, etc., a lot in 2021. The sector, as we know it, I think we kind of all agree here, will never really work the same again. But what does blended mean? It means basically that the way we operate will change. Blended working will be the norm, and it combines the benefits of home and remote working in a really flexible way. The days of that 9 to 5, 5 days a week at the office are gone for most. And I think as we return to some form of normality in June, we'll start to see a lot of charities employ blended work, and if you already haven't. Some will even get rid of the office space completely, which is a totally viable option. Deafblind UK actually sold their offices last year, which isn't just bringing in a totally new way of culture and working, but they actually did that to make up for lost revenue. I think they sold it for 2.5 million, which is an incredible amount of money that they potentially didn't have last year. And many others are considering hot desking, including ourselves. You might want to downsize. It's always good to provide a space in some areas for workers to be able to go and switch off from home working. But it's also nice to have that flexibility to be able to go hot desk and stay at home as and when you need. Something we'll be considering, and I know it's something the likes of WWF have been doing ever since they kind of built their office down in Woking. I believe they have sort of 500-600 staff, but only 200-300 desks. So it's something they've been iterating on quite a while, and it's something I can see coming to the fore in the future. Saves a bit of money on office space, and allows your staff to have that flexibility of being able to come to the office when they need to and be able to stay home when that benefits them as well. But what does it all really mean? I mean, it really means that it's going to change the way we collaborate. We've already changed considerably, but to be fully blended, there's other things we'll need to do as well. Remote working tools will continue to explode into our consciousness. There's featured tools now for nearly every function, and as new needs arise, so will new tools. You can run them through some of the options that are already available. You can use Slack, you can use Microsoft Teams that can help staff keep in touch and send files. Dropbox, Google Drive make files accessible in the cloud, and then you've got your Trellos, your Asana, Zohos, your Mondays, which can keep your projects on track, and then the likes of Salesforce, Donify, Blackboard, which can all help with the sort of CRM side, marketing, communications to teams, and monitor your donors, everything like that. A really good example of this already kind of in flux, this blended collaboration tools is tools like Teams Voice. You might have seen this through us on our site already. But there's a sort of telephony option now where you can incorporate your telephone systems into Microsoft Teams. Essentially, if you're a Microsoft organization, then you can then do everything from one program. Essentially, share documents, you can connect internally, and now you can connect externally to be able to answer phones and that as well. Something that's available through our website. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And it doesn't have to be expensive, and that's often the thing. Oh, it's got to be expensive to do all this. And I kind of like I said, I already have shamelessly plugged our Exchange site. I kind of can't mention tools and products without plugging kind of discounted product portal where you can get the most software. So if you haven't already, go check out what products we have. Go check out the Exchange program, and you can get access to the likes of Microsoft, to the likes of Teams Voice, as I've talked about, as well as tons of security systems and project management tools as well for just a low admin fee. There's also need to be more cognizant of mental health, digital detoxes, and how we support employees. I think one thing lockdown has shown us is how resilient we are as individuals. As I said earlier, we're survivors. This year, with the right support, we can be thrivers too, in an even greater sense of the word. And it's just thinking about how we generally conduct ourselves in a virtual office space or in a blended office space. So that's blended meetings and socials, for example, be able to come up with ways that people can attend meetings both virtually and in person. Same for the social side of it. And social is another thing incredibly important to keep doing. It's something that we lost the grasp of very quickly early on in lockdown, as you sort of panic and change to support everything else, you forget about the people on the inside. And it's really important not to do that. Celebrate successes, and celebrate each other as well, and get to know each other a little bit, especially as you bring more people into the organization. Safe spaces to express concerns, as well as access to mental health guidance, training and services. So it's been one of the big things for us, that making sure that everyone in our organization feels that they have at least one person that go and express some of their concerns to, or express some of their issues on, say, I'm not okay, and they feel that it's all right to be not all right in that sense. And we also have sort of stepped up our access to mental health guidance, so bringing in the likes of Mind, or having Mind incorporated into some of our culture and what we do to make sure that people can access mental health help when they need it. And there's also the angle of making sure that your staff and your leadership and all that are kind of trained up to be able to support those who need mental health as well, and be able to recognize some of the signs when they appear within teams as well. There's also more emphasis needed on planning, time management and motivation. People who have traditionally been used to that office work, and I've traditionally worked to that stay-at-home work, and will have to learn the new ways of working, whether it's general office etiquette, or how to plan time when you've kind of got more off it, no one sort of sitting over your shoulder or sitting opposite you, keeping tabs on you in that sense. There's a lot of tools, as we already mentioned, that can help do that, but the traditional pen and paper model still works. Time management is crucially important. We actually released a really great podcast on this a couple of weeks ago about how some of us are doing our own things to keep ourselves on track. For me personally, I plan everything I need to do the next day, the night before, and then I've actually more recently I've kind of started to block time in my diary. Very conscious, as I kind of already mentioned, how much Zoom can just zap up your day and just make it disappear. Before you know it, you've been 7-8 hours on Zoom, you've got a cracking headache, and you kind of have to go lie down at 6-7 o'clock. So ways of planning and managing your time to break away from the computer or spend some time with people or outside is critically important. It will also mean we need to think more about how we secure ourselves from criminals as we kind of go on. And this, you'll kind of notice security to be a running theme throughout this, and we'll come to it more in step 6. But with more devices in more locations, and with some employees using their own devices, we're all a little bit more vulnerable. And sadly, during this vulnerable period, there are still hackers with really, really bad intent. Your organization is risk can be reduced for free, actually, by ensuring that staff only have access to exactly what they need to keep going. For system security, you can also investigate opportunities to deploy the likes of VPN networks, which automatically encrypts data when connecting to main charity server. Network access control systems can also ensure security by verifying that identity of staff logging in, multi-factor authentication, and all these little things like that. Is a little things you can do to just start chipping away at making your charity cyber secure without spending a lot of money. There is options for charities who are looking to overhaul entire systems. Cyber security can be achieved through education and smaller tech adjustments in a working from home environment. It's about making sure your staff are being aware of phishing and know what that is and what it entails, being aware of malware and understand what that looks like, as well as running email scans and general machine scans that can reduce risk already. Further than that, you can also go, you can also secure home routers, regularly change computer passwords, and follow the best step model from the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is 3 random words, hardest one to guess, like coffee, fish, football, for example. That's probably not a good one. It's kind of things I can see. But yeah, that sort of thing can help really prevent. And the last thing is kind of updating applications to the most relevant and most recent version. Can help really prevent cyber attacks as well. But as I said, we'll come more onto that in a little bit. So so on to hybrid, sorry, I've skipped ahead. I completely missed out hybrid. Hybrid is a word that we are seeing commonly used with events, and again, it will continue to dominate the sphere in 2021. We as charities, and we're used to running big events, and we have to get used to offering both virtual and physical experience simultaneously. I think in 2021, it's a growing demand. Should we actually face more stringent lockdowns and maybe a third wave of COVID, hybrid events will kind of prevent that from becoming another barrier to attendance. Even in sort of a pre-COVID-19 world, the charity sector has often been accused of being London-centric, very London-centric, sorry. It's a bit of a tough one to get out. But what hybrid events do allow us to do is offer great accessibility, particularly for the smaller charities with limited resources. You could have, say you're a charity that's based in London or anywhere for that fact. You could, have your community join in person, but then you could open that up to anybody, and you could have anybody join you from pretty much anywhere else in the country, in the British Isles, in Europe, in the world, if so be it. So there's a lot more there in terms of growing your audience and being able to reach more people, help more people, reach more donors. On donors, hybrid events do also offer greater fundraising potential. A physical event is a very effective way to mobilize supporter base. And these types of events do create a sense of community around the action, just like I was saying. And it inspires people to raise funds, and you can then extend that level of inspiration by bringing virtual aspects to it. Our good friends at the Orchard Trust, who I'll mention a little bit later on, did a totally virtual sort of summer fair last year, which I'm sure they'll be already having discussions about how they'll turn into a hybrid event going forward, to be able to just reach more people and just make a much more accessible event. By restriction participation to something that's just virtual or just physical, charities you're kind of leaving money on the table. And the inclusion of that virtual element to a fundraiser unlocks that much wider pool, as I've kind of already said. And I know, it seems a big effort. It seems making that jump from something that's, just one way or the other. And just as we know, this is something we're already looking at for our conference next year, how we can do that virtually. It's big effort. It can potentially be more costly, but as I've already alluded to, it's a much bigger reward. Ultimately, it's something that will help you reach more people, users and donors, more people than you've ever been able to reach before. So it's something that we should all be considering as we look towards events in 2021. We also have a great ebook on our site that can help you get started with this. And I'm pretty sure we'll be sharing that after as well. Now I can jump ahead, sorry, got ahead of myself before. Next one's donor and user trust, and I did actually mention this one last year, as I said, but it still kind of stands, albeit in a slightly different way in 2021. More people are going to be able to connect. There's going to be more people out there this year. There's more people online to connect with digitally than ever before. And as I've kind of alluded to, 2021 will all be about the community and building and nurturing donor and user communities in that sort of local bubble. The key to any community, how big or small, is trust and transparency. And we've got some really quick tips to help you build that trust online. First one is sort of involve them in the digital decision-making process. And this, again, will spill over into culture and strategy, as well as we look to more user-centric models of digital strategy. They are integral to how your charity performs. It's all about people at the end of the day. Digital is all about people. It's all about the people who deliver it, and it's all about the people who use it or engage with it. So it's important to talk to them and get feedback from them as you go on the journey. Maybe you're starting on a new digital project, or your strategy revolves around some new tools or new ways of doing things. It's really important to ask your audience how they would like to interact with said project, said tool. It's almost key to keep them involved in that loop, and keep talking to them as well. They will tell you, almost like quote unquote trusted testers, which you see in a lot of big organizations and big companies. Something we did a lot when I was at Google as well, that we used a pool of our most, our core users, as we called them, to give us feedback on how we were doing, what our marketing was like, what our service was like, how we can make things better. And they'll be more than happy to do that, because they're your flag bearers, they're your ambassadors. So it's important to keep that and keep revisiting the loop. and you know, sort of the bottom end of that loop as well is to continuously thank them as well. You can build really good trust and really good relationships with your audience by thank them. And this seems quite futile and quite easy, and it's something, you know, the regulars on the webinar have probably heard me talk about a million times, and I'm going to use the same example because and I am wary, I'm kind of wearing it out a bit, but the smallest gestures, really, like thank you, can really go a long way. And I always reference blood.co.uk when I talk about this. You know, giving blood is a great thing and everyone should do it, but the way blood.co.uk really take you through that journey makes it so much more worthwhile. You know, from the interactions that I have with you when you go to give your donation, to the little thank you text afterwards, and then telling you what your donation's gone on to do, which is a relatively new feature where it's kind of like, oh, your bag of blood's been sent to XYZ hospital and has helped on this, which to me, that's like, it's incredible. And it makes me remember, like, next time, oh, that's great. That just reinforces me that what I'm doing is an amazing thing. And the next time they call to book my appointment, I'm going to answer the phone. It's really something small as a text message that just kind of changes my perception of them, builds more trust in them as a brand. It makes me want to engage with them more. I do realize I need to find a new I need to find a new example of that, but it's just a brilliant one. So apologies, there's my fourth apology for the day. And then last, again, security, protect the data. And be open about what you do with it. Again, we'll come more about this to the end, but one of the best ways to build trust is to be honest about the data that you support. You know, you be honest with what you're collecting, what you're doing with it, how you're using it, and you know, be really open and honest with your supporters, with your service users, with your donors. It's incredible. So it can just help build that level of trust, give people insight into you, be personable. So really want to sort of express that. On to the next, excuse me, I'm just going to take a quick drink. I realize I'm getting a bit hoarse. I haven't talked this long in ages, surprisingly. Next, on to digital culture and strategy, which I kind of lost on what number we are now. I think it's 4. I should have numbered the slides really. But yeah, the next trend I think for this year is, again, it's an everlasting trend, but it's something that is kind of, it's constantly evolving. You know, we mentioned is one of the big takeaways from last year, the big learns, is that digital success is determined by mindset, not by revenue or size. We mentioned that finding from the report already. You know, it's coming up to the end of the financial year, and it's important to build what happened last year into not only the financial plans that we've got coming up this year, but the strategic plans as well. You know, make your culture digital, don't make digital a part of your culture. And what I mean by that is that digital should be a thought process for every person in your organization. Every team should be digital, not just you have a digital team. You know, whether it's HR, whether it's service delivers or program delivery or programs, or whether it's marketing events, they should all think with that digital mindset. How can we make this more digital? How can we make the digital side of this more effective? Now, additionally, you know, as we've already mentioned, make every decision that you make with people in mind. At the end of the day, it is people who make charities work. You know, it's the people inside charities who make them work from the inside, and it's the donors and supporters and service users who keep the wheel churning as well. So it's important to think of everything you do from a culture and a strategy perspective, how that supports the people inside the organization, how we serve the people outside the organization, and how we engage the people who want to engage with the organization. We kind of believe that you know, creating the right digital strategy in 2021 is going to revolve around 4 key questions. First one is, what are the needs of your users? And you can start this by identifying the needs of service users and supporters, and then kind of work backwards from there. You know, decisions around digital strategies, projects, tools, general solutions should be made with the intention of addressing the challenges that users face. And as we've already said, the way you find that out is by involving them. You know, ask them how you can help them overcome some of their challenges, and you know, get in touch with them to say, like, find out how they can better connect with you as an organization, whether it is online, whether it's in person, whether it's a hybrid mix of both. We've kind of covered all those bases, but talk to them and find out exactly what they need. Excuse me. The next question is, what are your current resources? So taking stock of what you currently have internally and looking at your digital infrastructure, along with understanding your user needs, will kind of highlight where the digital vacuum is. Some good questions to ask yourself when looking at your resources is like, what's your current online presence? How are you currently utilizing and handling data? Do you have any sort of automated processes within your organization for services or for marketing? How do you collect your donations? Is that online? Is that digital? Or is it still very much in-person bucket collecting? What are your current capabilities? What can you do from a content point of view? What can you do from a marketing point of view? These are all really useful questions that can help you identify where your strategy needs more attention on. And then question 3 is a concept that we've kind of seen come to prominence in the sector, which is, should we build or buy the tech you need? Kind of after you've understood those user donor needs and taken stock of what you have, the next big question is, you should have a good idea of the direction of your digital strategy. At that point, the task at hand is kind of to choose the right tech you need to ensure that that strategy is moved forward and is successful. The most important decision is whether you're going to purchase out of the box solution or if you build your own bespoke tech. The choice of tech is always unique to each individual charity. There's no sort of one answer fits all here, but there are some general rules that we've seen kind of crop up that might help. We're seeing that larger charities tend to build more. They often require bespoke software to achieve their goals, and lots of larger charities need precise customizations. Building has its benefits, including complete customization and full control over the user journey and more scope for kind of capturing data and analytics. The downside is an obvious one. Building tech is very, very costly. For smaller charities on a tighter budget, these often benefit from buying this out-of-the-box software. There's often no need to splash out sort of big amounts of expensive build options, and it's kind of easy to use. It's kind of easy to use and works as you go straight out of the box. Obviously, the downside, there's kind of less sort of flexibility on what you can have there, but there's still always ways to make it work. Either way, whatever you decide to do, whatever suits your charity, you need to put the time and research into choosing the best platform, and finding the best option for you that meets your user needs and keeps them as the focal point. Lastly, the last question or the last statement, this less of a question, more of a statement. It's kind of a different take on Glenn Ross. Always be closing. This is always be learning. And that's kind of, it's kind of the biggest thing, I think, with any charity. You need to track and measure your strategy constantly. We have an OKR set up here that we constantly track on a weekly basis to see how we're performing. That allows us to continuously iterate, continuously change direction as we see things changing in real time. I think the key thing here is don't be afraid to fail. What the most important thing is that you learn and iterate as you go. The most successful strategies, are evolutionary. You want to double down on your successes and then learn from your mistakes. Strategy is this ongoing process. It's continuously evolving and continuously needs to be worked on. So on to number 5, we have creativity in abundance. As I said already, 2020 was the most creative charities have been in years. Some quick examples of that was the Orchard Trust, which we already mentioned, a very simple but effective live virtual fundraiser where they held their annual summer fair online and matched the same donations from the previous year, to something a bit more like to more user-driven challenges, which I'm sure many of us have all taken part in, whether it's your virtual Great North Run, your virtual marathon, your virtual Bike London, that sort of thing. And then you've got your far out examples like celebrity endorsements through Cameo, which kind of picked up during the summer there, just before Christmas a little bit, where Cameo is this celebrity tools where you get personalized messages from celebrities at really low cost, and like 40-50 pounds I think they are per video. And we really started to see an uptake in charities getting endorsements from the likes of Bruce Grobbelaar and people like that, for football fans out there. There's a really good mix. I think there's a few of the Office characters on there as well, so we've seen them really grow in prominence and get some quite good engagement as well. From a creativity perspective, I do thoroughly expect this to grow through the next year. During the pandemic, we've all spent more time online. It's made us more demanding of our consumers. it's made us more demanding consumers of digital media. Essentially, we've come to rely more and more on digital channels to meet more of our needs, and that's kind of raised our expectations a bit. I think for the most part of the last 12 months, supporters have been willing to kind of deal with, kind of clunky platforms and things through Zoom, not the best quality video, that sort of stuff, or crackly sounds, podcasts on the go, less good sound quality, and that sort of thing. But I think as we move on in 2021, that's going to kind of change. And to match those user expectations, we'll have to create these new digital engagements and thrive in communities that can bring charities and audiences closer together and keep that trust and keep that engagement high. One fact of this is UGC, and that was an enormous part of the pandemic. And you can kind of look no further than the late great Captain Tom for an example of how UGC works in Flux. Empowering our users to work for us will be a huge part of 2021 as we become more community focused. And we've kind of touted two things to watch out for this year with regards to UGC. TikTok is a big one. TikTok kind of came into its own in 2020. It's got 800 million active users who kind of turned to it while in lockdown. Charities are starting to use it more and more to garner support among the Gen Z demographic, who do make up 60% of its users. Non-profits, charities, NGOs can engage through the platform with user bases through what they call hashtag challenges. I'm sure you've seen or even took part in a lot of these challenges, specifically the dance ones. There was a lot of those going on last year. And these challenges do allow charities to create their own content to show support for specific campaigns. A couple of examples of that, the United Nations International Fund for Agricultural Development launched the world's largest dance challenge last year. It was called the hashtag Dance for Change campaign, and it helped people in rural areas of Africa and other development countries create 33,000 videos and generate over 81 million views. Quite exponential reach when you think about it. To bring it a little bit closer to home, Youth Music also ran a campaign through TikTok, which is called Music Shape Me campaign, which saw over 15 million engagements over 3 weeks on TikTok, as opposed to the 16,000 on Twitter that they put out. And TikTok themselves are starting to get more involved in fundraising. They donated £1 for every Movember challenge video created, and £2 for every video created in support of Red Nose Day. And as of this morning, actually, when I was doing a little bit more research into TikTok, I read about the British Red Cross, who was actually in one of the forums, have been said they're doing amazing things with TikTok. I haven't had a chance to go look into that yet, but I hope you'll all join me in doing that afterwards. And I do believe we are kind of knocking up some articles about it as well. The second one, from a UGC point of view, is map challenges. Also a big one to look out for. We've also mentioned that events have now changed. Charities don't have to wait for the annual marathon or Ride London anymore, and it doesn't have to be just a one-off occurrence. Instead, they can empower our audience to complete challenges as regular as they can to see fit. 66% of Gen Z donors said they would like to participate in milestone-based virtual challenges, and we believe that trend is going to rise even further in 2021. Something that kind of verifies this is that fundraising platforms themselves are looking to make it easier for charities to utilize this as an engagement channel. Enthuse, My Virtual Mission, Real Buzz, and Big Team Challenges all offer their own unique take on the virtual challenge. And as much as I'd like to run through all their features, attributes, and benefits now, we're kind of strapped for time. I'm just looking at it now, and your time is precious. We do have a great comparison article already on our site, which I'm positive someone will share afterwards, if not in the chat already. Excuse me. Another one we kind of want to touch on is virtual meetups, and this is kind of a way to give us sort of it's less of a UGC tool, more of a different tool in our arsenal. I think we're all kind of sick of the quizzes, but virtual meetups will continue to evolve and take new shape. A great example of this is Clubhouse, which is kind of an audio-only social media app that's pretty new. and it's purely focused on social interaction. So there's no camera, which helps avoid that Zoom fatigue. And rather than being kind of open to anyone, they've created a sense of exclusivity through this invite-only system. To become a user, you have to be invited by someone who's already on the app. And once you join, you get your own sort of limited number of invitations. And the more you kind of use the app, the more invitations you're kind of awarded. It's very much still in its infancy, but we are starting to see charities flirt with it a little bit. And we feel it kind of might blow up a little bit in 2021 and become an interesting way of charities kind of interacting with donors. There isn't a donation mechanism as it stands at the minute, or kind of option to monetize your presence on Clubhouse, but they are looking to bring in a tipping mechanism, which will allow creators to kind of earn from their content in the not too distant future. The platform does offer opportunities to kind of complement your existing fundraising program, though. You can create intimate invite-only rooms for kind of major donor cultivation, or like thanking events, as we kind of mentioned before, with the senior and donor thanking events between senior frontline staff with the donors who are giving them. You can also enhance the sort of special or challenge event fundraising experience that we were talking about before, with kind of these behind the scenes or additional content, which invite only. You can also do sort of quick sort of information services and Q&As for beneficiaries with experts. That's something that could also work well, kind of like a webinar, but a lot more intimate. Definitely want to watch this year. Keep an eye out for it, for sure. So there's other sort of existing sort of digital engagement tools that we probably already have in our arsenal, and are just not using them properly, or I've often talked about it lots, but haven't actually done it yet. Voice is a huge one of this. Voice engagement is going to be a big one. The pandemic has changed sort of every aspect of how we communicate. We all spending more time online, and has made us more sort of demanding consumers, as we said. Voice communications remains it is vital for many types of service user-led charities. This has been said. Sorry, I'm going to start again. Completely lost my place there. Yeah, voice communication is vital for many types of service user-led charities. And this is, you don't have to look much further than running a helpline to show how essential this is. Voice communication offers benefits to service users that other forms of communication can't really. And many of these helplines work with people experience difficult or traumatic life events, and the human element of voice communication allows for empathy and connection in a way that, some artificial methods can't match. For helplines dealing with particularly stigmatized issues such as abuse, addiction, voice can help strike that perfect balance, as well as that human connection, as we mentioned. It establishes the trust that we've also talked about, while preserving anonymity as well. And many people in such situations only feel comfortable communicating in certain ways. Charities that can offer a range of different comm channels will have the greatest impact in 2021. There's also sort of an increasing use of voice search as well. That's made it important for organizations to rethink their digital marketing strategies in 2021. There's now like 72% of people who own voice activated speakers say that their devices are used as part of their daily routines. It's a lot of people. And what we can see is many brands are already using voice search in their digital marketing strategies to deliver value-based content effectively to their customers. The NSPCC was actually a super early adopter of this back in 2018, when they used voice recognition technology through Amazon Alexa to boost donations. Alexa owning donors could simply say, "Alexa, open NSPCC," and they could then donate money. And money was taken straight from their Amazon account via and sent to the charity via Amazon Pay. So yeah, expect it. There's a lot we can still do. I think Alexa or Google are just checking mine, not about to go off, are pretty much in every home now. So there's a ways and means, whether it's through podcasting or whether it's through connecting with Amazon and Google in some way to increase that donation cycle, that we should definitely be looking to utilize those where we can. The next tool, which is one that I'm sure we've all flirted with, and one that we definitely should be using more for. And like kind of, I'm just going to note, sorry, before I go on, I've noticed it's 2 o'clock. I've got one more bit to go. If you can stick with us, great. If not, thanks for joining us. Do catch up with the recording. On the video again, sorry. I always say, you know, like the cars video is something everybody wants. It's massively talked about. But it's yet to be fully adopted, whether that's because people think it's a little bit too expensive, or it's just not quite where it should be yet. But the kind of crux of the matter is that 70% of consumers say that they have shared a brand's video, and over half of users say that watching videos makes them more confident in doing a decision making, which hugely suggests that video needs to be a big part of charity marketing in 2021. It's widely touted that if a site includes videos, it's 50 times more likely to drive organic search results compared to text. Why is this? Because people find video content more compelling. So Google pushes pages that include videos higher in the ranking. It's as simple as that. One of the best things about video marketing is that it makes it easy to reformat any content. You know, take a video you've done on YouTube, you can take the transcript away from that and turn it into an article or a blog post. You can take the voice recording from that and turn it into a podcast in a few tweaks. It can actually be repurposed. You can cut it down into sort of 5 to 10 little snippets. It's a 5 little video, and kind of use that to promote something to a bigger campaign. It's just one of those, you know, it's a really flexible piece of content that we can be using, something we're looking to use more as we go on. Those who've been following us will have noticed we released a video this morning on cybersecurity, so one to watch particularly from us, and hopefully you can take a few examples and go on for them. So we're saying that the key to a successful video is to focus on the audience and the content. Continuously ask yourself again, you know, who's it for and what would they like to see? You see a lot of talk about the perfect length and perfect style for a video. I'm not a true believer of that. And you might have heard me kind of talk about that before. No, it's the content people care about most. I've shared the example many times that we are creatures of binge. You know, we listen to podcasts 2, 3 episodes at a time. We watch Netflix shows in one night. I definitely did with, you know, Making a Murderer, for example. We can read books in a day. Or we can spend hundreds of hours on video games. You know, time is all relevant to how good the content is. So to keep in how the audience perceives that content. So keeping your focus there will really turn you on to a content winner when it comes to video. So on to our last trend, and I do apologise for the time again, a 5th apology. Adding the 2 extra ones, I was obviously took me over time a little bit, but thanks to those who stuck with. Last up is cybersecurity. And I've saved this to last as it's by far the most important. In hindsight, I probably should have brought it further up. You know, we feel that, you know, cybersecurity has been heavily overlooked for the past 12 months. You know, as we've looked to secure funds and change the way we provide services. The really harsh truth here is that it's something we desperately need to pay attention to. Us as charities are prime targets for cyber criminals, not only because of the money that we hold from donors, but because the sensitive data that you hold on donors and service users as well. Criminals are also getting more sophisticated, and they do prey on the good nature of employees, which is awful. We looked at some ICO data from last year, and that shows that 43% of security incidents in the charity sector were from phishing attacks. So those are emails pretending to be something that they're not. And 27% are from ransomware, so taking a piece of available data and holding it ransom. Which just really shows that we really need to protect our data. Not only that, but we also need to train our staffs and ourselves on how to be more vigilant and how to look out for this stuff. You know, the effect of cybersecurity attack or a data breach can cost charities up to 4 times their revenue or income. It's not an insignificant amount. That's just the monetary side of it, as well as the reputation and the lack of trust that you lose from donors and service users as well. What it means is, like, all in all, you can't really be digitally strategic. You can't be resilient, and you can't be sustainable if you don't have any cybersecurity precautions in place, and you aren't protecting yourself and your organization and your people from cyber criminals. We've learned this firsthand. You know, it's very much a trending threat for us in 2021, having experienced our very own breach in January. Now, we did cover this in our last webinar, which you can viewed now, along with a host of our all other cybersecurity content, like how to protect from phishing attacks on our website. And we'll be working a lot more closely with charities, the NCSC, and cybersecurity tech firms in 2021 to help the sector get more cyber aware this year. We're changing the narrative. It is time that we really need to start paying this more attention and really start protecting ourselves. There's plenty of content you can go and engage with. We'll send that all out afterwards. But that is it. Thank you for persevering with me. Sorry for running a little bit over. I believe it's question time. If you do want to get in touch with me, you can do by any means on the site. And again, thanks very much for joining us. It's great to see so many of you online again. Apologies for overrunning, but have we got any questions, Lisa?
Yes, thanks, Chris. We have quite a few questions, so let's delve into the first one.
Right.
So is one from Sandy, and she'd be interested in hearing about the top tools for and suggestions for marketing and comms, for plannings, scheduling, monitoring. So do you have any tips or recommendations?
Yeah, it's a broad question, Sandy, but one I think I can help with. It all depends on your current processes within your organization. If it's marketing projects, a great tool to use is Asana. That you can sort of use that to set tasks, assign tasks to specific people on specific dates as well. It's a really good one to kind of keep people on track and, you know, not micromanage in a way as well, not constantly check in with staff and colleagues and see where they're at with certain things. You can go and they can add notes, you can add notes, they get notified, that sort of thing. For more agile projects, Trello's really good, that Trello board where you can pop things up and have a look on that. There's also, it has to be said from like a marketing and comms perspective, there's a lot to be said for the Excel spreadsheet calendar. I mean, that's something I personally love. And it's something we use in our team to plan our email sends, to plan our communications, do the same for social. But there are great things as well, that Hootsuite for managing all that sort of thing. So there's a really good collection of tools out there. We've got mass amounts of comparisons on all of them on our website, but it all kind of depends on what you're looking to do more of. Whether it's email and social, would definitely recommend having some broad-based calendars at a sort of internal level. If you want to sort of set and assign tasks for other people, Asana is great for that. In terms of tools to schedule, you can schedule emails through, we've got Digital on our product platform. We've got Hootsuite as a product listing as well. And there's a whole heap. It all depends on affordability and what exactly you're looking for. Hopefully that helped a little bit.
Thank you. We have so the next question, so it's anonymous, but somebody who said that they've managed to grow their audience in the virtual event world, and they're asking about the next step in terms of considering to become a hybrid event. So what should people consider when they're fundraising events, they want to make it hybrid?
Absolutely. I'd highly recommend you check out our the report I said earlier, because that got key steps to getting you started. In a nutshell, it obviously depends on the environment at the minute, and kind of looking back on what I said, it's important to talk to users. For our last conference and for our last virtual event and for this conference, we'll be including in our feedback what people feel about coming back to a physical event, if there's any aptitude from it in the first place, and we'll include like whether it's they prefer physical, whether they prefer virtual, whether they prefer hybrid, and that will give us a good breakdown of what we need to be thinking towards. From our thoughts, and very much we think of it differently, is because our beneficiaries are you and slightly different to donors as service users in that sense. We think about more, we're thinking more of maybe housing a small number in a physical space that can also be socially distanced, and then often adding some sort of virtual event component to it. If you've got a really good virtual event model, it's sort of thinking about how that can fit in. How can those tools that you use to run your virtual events, how can they fit into a physical environment? Could you have a space where people can go and sit? Do you have how are you going to record them on the day? Is there going to be an AV team at the physical event? It's all those are the sort of things you need to be considering. but as I kind of said, that there's some risk in it, and it could potentially cost a lot more upfront. But the reward's much higher. You should be able to reach a lot more people. But definitely have a look at that piece of content that we've got.
Super, thank you. Before we delve into a couple more questions, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. Apologies, obviously we've run a little bit over, but we'll try and answer as many questions as we can. But if you can't stick around, that's absolutely no problem. Thank you once again for attending, and I hope you got loads of nice takeaways. So diving on to the next questions. So what somebody asking about what type of trends will continue once the COVID restrictions are loosened. So I know we talked about hybrid events. Do you think of other trends that will still be there even if COVID's restrictions are lifted?
Work from home for sure.
Yeah.
I saw someone in the chat actually put in that they've got rid of the office space as
The
well.
office, yeah.
I know personally for us, we'll definitely be like, our work from home policy was 1 day, which was quite generous way back when, and I don't think we'll be going back to that. I think it'll be more likely 1 or 2 days in an office space. So work from home is definitely one that's gonna continue, and it'll manifest itself more in a blended working environment, because we're obviously seeing, from a mental health perspective, people are preferring, people like to have that availability to go into the office. But again, that's all down to the people who work in your organization and seeing what they would prefer. Kind of a lot of what I covered today, to be honest, Lisa, is a lot what I think will continue. A lot of it already exists. It'll just grow and change in some way, shape, or form, as we get more. As our audience gets more, their expectations get bigger. Tech will also provide a lot more, and we'll have to deliver a lot more. So the creative side of it, UGC was huge. Charities really tapped into, by UGC, I mean user-generated content, really tapped into their audience last year, those core followers, to continue to give them support. It's about building that community out a little bit more now, making it bigger and continuously tapping in on that. That's who you can celebrate physically. Then virtually, that's when you bring in everybody else. It's going to be a really interesting year. That level of creativity, I think we've opened Pandora's box. It's just going to go kind of mental now. We're all just creativity in abundance, and that stems from that change that we all kind of made in March 2020 last year. Took that first step, and now we've got the taste for it, really, and we're just going to kind of crack on and try new things, learn, and exactly, it's really exciting.
Definitely, very, very exciting. A couple of more questions. Sandy is asking about charity examples of videos. Do you have any in mind?
Off the top of my head, I always cite Charity Water. I'd lost their name for a second. Charity Water makes some really, really good videos, really engaging, and really good at storytelling. Their content's just incredible. There's also the likes of Age UK doing some great video ones at the minute as well, some great on TV advertisement, which I've said. Seeing that's kind of one that I've jumped out from is WWF always make great impactful ones. I'll have to do a little bit more looking at some of the smaller charities. I did used to have a list of this, and I'm 99% certain we've got an article that covers all these. But yeah, they're always good to look at examples and then see how you can create in your own way. That's what we do. And I think as marketers, as charities, as general businesses, we learn from looking at other people and what they do, and then make it into our own.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think I also remember about Charity Water. They had a VR of options. Where
it was incredible. I actually done it when I lived in New York as well, and I was crying by the end of it. It was really, really powerful, really impactful. You went on a walk with, I can't remember her name, but you went on a little girl with this little girl to collect water. It was really incredible. Just really clever storytelling.
Yeah, very good. Loads of good ideas out there. And coming back onto user-generated content and the new platforms such as TikTok, somebody's asking whether you see any potential problem with sharing content on TikTok, and is it easier for a charity to jump on current trends or create their own content through the supports and the people they support?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know there has been a few issues sort of popped up around TikTok, but again, it's more protecting yourself. They have some really good measures in place to protect content and protect people who are from cyberbullying and stuff like that. I can't remember them all exactly, but again, we have a great article that covers them, and we'll share that afterwards. So I think it's grown, which is it's a grown. So there's some pain points there, but I'm really excited to go and see what the British Red Cross are doing. I only came across that this morning, so again, that'll be a useful one to go and see. Sorry, what was the second half of the question, Lisa?
And then whether it was jumping on the trend or relying on supporters and people that they were typically engaging with. So I'm thinking about user-generated content as well. How important?
Yeah, I think it's both, isn't it?
Mm.
It's important to jump on trends, I think, and again, you don't have to stick with it. I think that it's not about jumping on every trend, but it's about jumping on the relevant trends for you. I'm always about multiple touch points. If one crops up that you think actually that really suits us, it's something that you really want to back. Less of a trend, more of a movement, more of an impact. Charities Against Hate is a good example for us. There's lots of things we could channel in support within the sector. Charities Against Hate came up. We were like, yeah, that's something we should definitely support, and less of a trend, more of some impact. But there's sort of cross references there, so it's all about picking the right one that's for you. But yes, it's you should also, from a user generated content point of view, start with your audience. Tap into that core audience first, and your data will show you the people who are donating with you, are donating to you most, are using your services most. These that build your core audience. Use them to build a trend, and maybe hop on other trends to widen that audience further to bring people into your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Chris. And going back onto one of the most famous platform of all, Facebook. I've seen a couple of comments in a chat section about whether Facebook fundraiser were here to stay, or whether some people thought that they were maybe waning a little bit. What are your thoughts about the whole sort of Facebook as a way to fundraise using Facebook?
Yeah, I've got some interesting sort of takes on Facebook. I'm a thorough believer that the Facebook page is dead. And if you haven't got an already established user base on Facebook, or your audience doesn't reside there, you'll never get one now. It's too difficult. The algorithms and the way they've set Facebook up is really hard for you to grow any traction if you've got no budget. You can pay to grow it, which is very much what Facebook would like you to do. But unless you've got historical followers and historical engagement, it's something that's really difficult to do now. However, that being said, the group, the community side of it is still very popular, and one that is a way that you can tap into, not necessarily for direct donation as such, but it's a way you can definitely engage with your donors. Yep. So you could set up like kind of like a lot like the Sort of Trusted Tester example. You can test up like a celebratory Facebook group for all the people who donate you to keep in touch, and then you can keep in touch with them. And it's not about you is the important thing in a group. It's about them. You want to encourage organic conversation. So ask them questions, get them to share their stories. Share case studies, like maybe host live events about what person X has done with donation Y, that sort of thing. Those thoughts and opinions are my own. I'm not going to say that of everything else, but certainly the trends and the way Facebook has gone over the last few years, it's more on the groups. If it's something that you're looking to start out with, if you've got a great following, great, and I think stick with it, keep using that, keep doing it.
Absolutely. Yes, and there was the one of Bunny's question that was related, that they'd unfortunately been the victim of Facebook unpublishing the charity page. So that's something you touched upon as well, that the referencing and the Facebook page sort of flow and process is quite complicated now.
Yeah, Bonnie, I'd be interested to hear more about that
Mm,
actually. I wonder if did they give you a reason or anything? Maybe connect with me afterwards and
yeah.
we can have a conversation about that because I haven't seen much of that or heard much of that. So I'd be interested to pick up on that and kind of do some investigative journalism there.
Oh, great, great. Thank you, Chris. And then, well, we have time for one more question. So now, going
Yeah.
back onto sort of working and hybrid working, somebody is asking whether there's benefit in using a co-working space specifically for charitable organizations, or what are your views on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am a fan of the co-working spaces, but I kind of started my working life in WeWorks in albeit in New York. And they were great fun. It's like as a new start. I sort of knew on the work that I loved it. I get why they're not as they've got a lot more expensive is the problem. Um, and I know there is a few that are specifically designed for charities. We used to be in one before my time, and for the life of us, and I can't remember what it's called. And we were in one, yeah, many moons ago. And there's a few others, but we can dig those
Center.
names out here.
Yeah.
There is benefit to them. Obviously, the ability to hot desk, shared meet, be able to use meeting spaces, and then the perks that come with them, free coffee, all that sort of stuff. So there is benefit. I haven't seen one that is reasonable enough yet, to be honest. And I have done a little bit of looking around some co-working spaces. They are quite expensive, and the charity discounts aren't brilliant. I think there's a lot more they can do there for charities in particular. It is one I think that might change this year. I think they as people want to move away from the bigger office space, like the sort of supply and demand might drive price down a little bit, and they should become more accessible. And they're not kind of trying to break into the market as much as they once were. But that's not one I'd be like to go, or it's definitely going to happen. That's more of a one keep an eye on. Um, but yeah, there's plenty to look at from hot desking, and there's loads of hot desking types we can you can look at as well. But I want to give you a better answer than that, so I'm going to pop that into our content calendar for next year. It's really good. It's a really good idea for an article.
See, thank you very much. You all giving us some ideas to write
UGC,
on.
Lisa,
So
UGC.
UGC.
Love
No,
it.
that's great. That's great. Well, it's 20 past 2 now. So this is our way of saying that this was the last questions. Obviously, we can answer any more question you have. We'll send a recording next week, and if you have any other question, please email us. Please comment the webinar page, and we'll be more than happy to help you and provide all the resources that we mentioned on the webinar page too. So yeah, thanks very much again. Thank you, Chris, for
Pleasure.
the
Thanks.
presentation. It's
Good
been
to speak to everybody again.
yeah, good to speak to you all. Good to see that you're all joining us from different parts of the UK. So it's always great to hear your thoughts and experiences. So yeah, so thank you. Hope you found that useful. Full of good takeaways. Obviously, like I said, next week is our conference, so please feel free to hop on our website and find out more about that. And on the 11th of March will be our next webinar, which will be on grant funding. So as always, you'll receive some emails about it if you want to attend this webinar. Once again, thank you very much, and hope to see you again very soon.